happy Monday and happy harvest, Sister Kate. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with the HIA today. I am so honored to be able to share these insights with our membership who, just like you, are facing a plethora of new challenges this year, which include COVID and a broad range of environmental impacts, all the way from fire to hurricane and early snow. So I can't wait to get your take on all of that. But before we dive into your own experiences and insights, for those who are not already familiar with you and Sisters of the Valley, can you talk a little bit about your organization's mission, what you do, and what you grow for?
Okay, so we were founded in January 1st of 2015, so we're like approaching our 6th year. And we were born of the Occupy movement. We were born of the fact that in 2014, Michelle Obama tried to talk to Congress about how unhealthy our children's meals are. And they filibustered, and a week later gathered to declare pizza a vegetable in order to give her the finger. Basically, I took that as a supreme insult to the woman of color, and to women, number one, and then women of color, number two. Just a big insult. And when Congress declared pizza a vegetable, I declared myself a nun and joined the Occupy movement. And that began a 4-year conversation at very interesting places that I went to over those 4 years. Docks to close down the ports so a slave labor diamonds couldn't arrive, to busing being canceled for the poor kids and the kids in the country, those strikes with the busing people, the bus drivers. Protests across California led a long 4-year discussion on what would a new age order of sisters look like. And ultimately, Sisters of the Valley became the result of that. It was decided through those 4 years of conversations that the world doesn't need another religion. It was decided that what the world does need is women dedicated to their work, but came out of that with property ownership. Basically, we decided the world would be a kinder and gentler place if women owned all the apartment buildings and all the football teams and all the stadiums and all the businesses. So we are first enforced. It took 4 years to figure out what we would look like. It turned out, though, that there is a pattern for this, and you have to go look at in the castles of Europe in the 800s and look at the Beguines. The Beguines went extinct because they would not affiliate with one religion. They were independent women who owned property and owned farms, and they always kept one. They were farm women who always kept a store and a castle, and they were known for their excellence in soap making, in hemp growing, in cannabis products, in medicine. We found a lot of similarities with the Beguines, not only in this women owning property and businesses, but in creating, they were the first nurses in the castles of Europe. So where they had to stand back and let the pasty old white guys put leeches on the king's son to cure his seizures, they had the plant medicine in their pockets. So we relate to them from the standpoint that today we have to stand back and watch our doctors put poisonous chemicals into people's systems to cure their cancer or their seizures when we have the medicine in our pockets. There's a lot of similarities. They were known for their excellence. We tried to be known for our excellence. They organized their lives by the cycles of the moon. We organize our lives by the cycles of the moon. We have a lot in common with them. So the Sisters of the Valley, ultimately today, we're a loosely knit group of sisters and brothers, because 20% of our sister brotherhood is our men, but we don't care about that. We care about women owning the property and women making the business calls. And the men that work with us are equal feminists. They are men who are also raised by single mothers and want to see women empowered through owning things. And so there's about 30 of us worldwide. There's 6 of us that live on a 1-acre farm in California and work this farm. And we make and sell about $1 million a year worth of products, hemp products. Our #1 seller is our tropical salve. That is our Burt's Beeswax product. But the point is, we're a social experiment. We're a social experiment in what a New Age nun would look like. We're a social experiment with small farms. We're a social experiment with cannabis. We believe that one day science will prove that cannabis is like honey, local is best, and And that's why we're trying to grow enclaves around the world in Mexico, Brazil, New Zealand, England, and so forth.
Well, since it's harvest season, I would love it if you shared a little bit about what harvest typically looks like for you on your farm and how your normal operations have been impacted by COVID.
And we're actually getting ready to harvest this Friday. And this Friday, we have a filmmaker who's driving across the country from New York to come and film the harvest with the sisters.
Oh my gosh. I feel so lucky. We're getting like a little preview of all of that.
Yeah, so in spite of the fires, in spite of COVID, we've learned that cannabis is COVID proof. In spite of all of that, our crop, like this is my favorite because this one just grew randomly and was already growing in the ground. So we put the rest of the plants in line with this one. You go ahead and turn it a little bit. You can see.
Gosh.
And but this one just grew. Most of them are in pots to keep the moles. Can you tip it a little bit so she can see? They're in pots to keep the moles from them and to temperature control them better. But this one just was a random, and these are all CBD plants. They're all pointing in funny directions.
They are.
Can you see everything, Sarah?
I can. So, and this is perfect because I'm so wondering how you learned that it's better for yours to be in pots versus in the ground. Did you learn that one the hard way, or?
Yes, we learned the hard way. We learned the hard way because we wanted to do everything natural. But then as soon as you have the gophers eat the roots of a few plants, you're like, yeah, natural is nice, but so is science. And also so either we had gophers or we had such intense heat in the Central Valley. We were, 5 years ago, we were still at the end of the drought years, a 10-year drought. And the heat was so intense that we really went to the pots to be able to keep the roots cooler by keeping them off the ground.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And so what advice would you give to anyone who's preparing for their very first harvest this year?
Get a Rudy. We have Rudy. Get a Rudy. Get a guy. But the thing is, this is very sexist, but I know this is sexist. I admit to it being sexist, but the truth of the matter is, historically, men take more risks than women do anyway. And it's the same in the cannabis industry. You are going to try to find a woman expert and grower. Good luck on that. But yet throw a stone and you'll hit a guy who's growing cannabis, right? So because they'll take that risk where women won't. So we have Rudy, and ever since we've had Rudy we tried to do collaborative growing. I would advise people never do collaborative growing. Somebody has to be the boss because people will waste a lot of time. There's a million different opinions on how to grow the plants and how to root plants and how to water plants and how to it's all over the board. The science isn't really there, but we have a lot of people who are really good at it. But if you have 2 or 3 of them get together and it's not clear that one of them's the boss, you'll lose plants for 2 seasons just for the arguing that goes on about how it should be done. So I would just pick somebody and be like, this person we're gonna do it his way, and if he fails, then we'll do it your way, and make everybody line up behind that grower's philosophy.
Tell me a little bit about why you joined the HIA and what benefits of membership have been impactful or important to you.
What I find valuable, the most valuable thing about the Hemp Industry Association is keeping track of what's going on for us and keeping us alerted to what's going on in Washington. And so we have a trusted source. It's like having our own lobbyist. You kind of are our lobbyist, right? So even though, we all think that's a dirty word, when it comes down to being represented, we're all underrepresented in Washington. And most of us don't have a wide variety of places to go for honest, straightforward information. So that it's filling that 2 roles there and getting good information to us, getting information that's worthy of our eye, because we're all very busy and we can be polluted and convoluted with too much information. We're all living in that era. So getting the right information from the Hemp Industry Association, getting information that has to do with for our own good, that's so important. And feeling like you're represented, that's important.
And you know that we're suing the DEA right now.
Yes, and I love that. Big high five on that one. That's brilliant. And it's actually brilliant strategy. And because you just picked a point that cannot be argued. It cannot be argued that this is it all came down to this 0.3% being ridiculous, and any nudge of that needle, when we know that it takes 3 to 4% to get somebody even register any effect. And then it takes another, say it's 3% to register any effect. You have to take that times the multiple of 4 to be anywhere near what somebody would buy in the black market, right? Nobody's going to buy anything less than 15% THC in the black market. That's just the way it is.
But what are your ambitions for the plant?
Oh my goodness. My ambitions for the plant is that in a very short period of time, it is returned to the respect it had when our forefathers were farming it on every farm, where it is returned to being a black market currency of its own, where it's returned to where it becomes the idea of putting plastic liners in our trash cans when we could put hemp liners in our trash cans. The idea of having plastic in our shoes when we could have hemp in our shoes. The idea of having plastic moldings and plastic blinds and plastic everything around us when we could have those out of hemp material that are natural and that won't put toxins in our air and won't give us bizarre cancers. My dream is that hemp becomes, like cows in India, the sacred plant that saved the planet.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to share or talk about before we end this?
If you are going to open a business in America, Americans are insane, and you better twine some spirituality into that, because that's probably the only chance you have of getting any kind of respect. And interesting enough to me, most people I've met in the cannabis business, they're not the go to church on Sunday religious crowd, but they're still very spiritual. They will meditate with their plants. They'll pray with their plants. They don't think it's crazy at all to burn sage around their plants. Growers from the most insane conditions have asked us to come out to bless their crops. So I personally have come to the conclusion that the real family values and the real spirituality in America is inside these grower communities. Where cannabis is being grown, real family values are being practiced, real neighborly values, real biblical values are being practiced. And outside of that arena, it's just a lot of smoke and talk. And so where it leaves, what I'm saying is if I had advice to people who are starting up in this business, I would say be bold. Just be bold and be ready for a fight. And then dare, kind of our approach has been daring them to do the un-American thing of putting us out of business based on stupidity.